This video is about solving using the quadratic formula. So we can identify how many solutions each equation has using the discriminant. Remember, the discriminant is what's underneath the square root of b squared minus 4ac. So in A, we first need to identify the a, b, c values that we're going to plug in. So in this case, the number in front of the x squared is a 1. So A is going to be 1. B is the value in front of the x, which is -4, and c is the value by itself. So when I substitute, I have -4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4. All I did was I substituted in for my A, B, and C values. So I can do this by hand, or I can just plug it into my calculator. So parentheses -4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4. In that case, we get 0. When there's a 0 under the square root, remember that the square root of 0 is just 0. So no matter if we plus or minus it, we're only going to get one solution. So anytime the discriminant is 0, that's always going to be one solution. In B, we have an a value of 1. That's what's in front of the x squared. The b value is 0 because there's nothing in front of an x, and our c value is 10. So when I substitute in the discriminant, I get 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10. So in the calculator, 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10. And I get -40. Now remember, when we have a negative number under the square root, taking the square root of a negative number is not possible. So this would be undefined, which means that we would have no solutions. And then in part C, our a value is what's in front of the x, so our a value is 1. Our b value is -10. And our c value is 16. So when I substitute in, I get -10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 16. So in the calculator, parentheses, -10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 16. And we get 36. Remember that whenever there's a positive number, we're going to add and subtract that in the quadratic formula. So in that case, we are going to get two solutions. Use the quadratic formula to find the solutions to the equations. Round any answers to the nearest hundredth. Now, the difference with these problems from yesterday is that they are not in the correct form yet. Remember, we need to have it set equal to 0 in order to use the quadratic formula. So number 2, we first have to subtract 5 from both sides. So we get 2x squared plus 10x minus 5 equals 0. So now I can identify my a, b, and c values. The a value is 2, it's in front of x squared. The b value is 10, it's in front of x. And the c value is -5, which is the value by itself. So we're going to substitute these all into the quadratic formula. And remember from yesterday, the quadratic formula is -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So when I set up my quadratic formula, it's negative times the b value, so negative times 10, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 10 squared, minus 4ac, so 4 times 2 times -5. And on the bottom we have 2 times -5. So we're going to simplify this. So the first part becomes -10. Underneath the square root, we're going to put that into the calculator. So parenthesis 10 squared minus 4 times 2 times -5, which gets us 140, all over -10. Now, because it's a positive number, we're going to get two solutions. So remember, we need to split this into two expressions. So we have 10 plus the square root of 140 over -10. And we have -10 minus the square root of 140 over -10. So in the calculator, remember, do the numerator first and then the denominator. So we have -10 plus the square root of 140. And then we're going to divide by the denominator, so divide by -10. And when I round to the nearest hundredth, I get negative 0.18. And we're going to do that one more time. So negative 10 minus the square root of 140 divided by negative 10 will get us positive 2.18. So let's try one more problem using the quadratic formula where we have to move things first. So in this case, it's again not set equal to 0, and there's two things on the other side that we need to move over. So we are going to subtract 4x, and we are going to subtract 6 from both sides. So we get 8 squared minus 1x plus 4 equals 0. So I can identify my a, b, and c values. So my a value is in front of the x squared, which is 8. My b value is in front of the x, which is negative 1. And my c value is the number by itself, so 4. So now we can set up our quadratic formula. So we have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times the a value. So when I simplify, negative times negative 1 is just 1, plus or minus the square root. We're going to put that in the calculator, see what we get. So in this case, we get parenthesis negative 1 squared minus 4 times 8 times 4. We get negative 127 over 16. Remember, when we get a negative number, we can't take the square root of that. So in this case, this is undefined, which means we have no solutions. So when it's undefined, there's no solution, so it's no real solution. So you don't actually have to write the undefined part. It's more knowing that there's no real solution because it's undefined. Number 4, draw a sketch of the graph that represents each of these. So remember that we can draw graphs to represent these because using the quadratic formula is just another way to solve for our x-intercepts. So we have 3 graphs. So the first graph is a no solution. And in a no solution, remember that means we're not going to have any x-intercepts. So we want to draw something where the vertex is not on the x-axis. If we have one solution, that means we're going to have one x-intercept, so our vertex is going to be somewhere on the x-axis. And if we have 2 solutions, then it's going to intersect the x-axis in 2 different places.